You must know that first. Can't nothing and nobody fade what we trying to do and what we about to do. Second thing is, we got this game on our level. You understand what I'm saying?
Welcome to another episode of In Space. I am your host, Chris Connor. This show is brought to you by the good people at DraftKings Sportsbook, New York Life, not to be confused with New York Magazine. And joining me is, I'd say at this point, it's been about a couple years since we've been in like communication consistently, but this last year and a half, 2 years, it felt like 7. I got my homie from NOLA.com as well as from the Wing Pod with I think I've known Adam since I got back on Twitter almost less than 10 years ago, and Adam McCrary. Christian Clark, what's up, bro?
Hey man, thanks for having me on. It has felt like 7 years. Why do you think it's felt that way?
You know, similar to this season. I've been using that. I don't even know if you meant to make it a quote when we were texting on the side, and you told me that this season's felt like 4-1, and it just feels like it's been so many highs and lows, ups and downs of the dramatic fashion, not just this past year, 2 years, but pretty much since you arrived. Maybe, Kristen, maybe it's your fault. You ever thought about that?
It might be, man. I mean, they looked cooked for a while, and then I thought they were going to go to the finals, and then they were cooked again.
So I do want to talk about that, man. I want to talk about the 4 seasons in one comment that you made. If you had to break them down, and you can do them in a short or an elongated form, break down to me the 4 seasons of 22-23 for the New Orleans Pelicans.
Oh man, I just remember being at opening night in Brooklyn and how long ago that felt, but I have just a lot of like memories that stick out of my head of what a fun night that was and all the possibility that there was with this team then. I mean, I would say the first like chunk in the season that sticks out of my mind is those few games that we saw Zion, Brandon, and CJ playing together. And there were some highs like in Brooklyn, but for the most part, it was, hey, look, we're all trying to learn each other's games. I mean, you're going to get that with almost any time you have a bunch of high usage guys playing together. There's just going to be a feeling out process. So it was, hey, these dudes are all on the court. They're all wearing this Pelicans uniform, which is sweet. And they're learning how to play with each other. You know, then it was, to me, the stretch of the season where really Zion became the focal point of the offense, and the team kind of took off. I put the 7-game winning streak in there, those 2 wins over the Suns, which were the most fun parts of the season. I mean, I will never forget the Zion 360 death hell dunk. That was an incredible moment. I mean, one of the most fun things I've ever seen live. Probably, you know, the stretch after that is from January 2nd until like mid-March when Zion got hurt and they really struggled. 10 games in a row, they lost. The offense fell off a cliff. I mean, one of the like key stats of the season to me is they're 8th in offense pre-hamstring injury, 26th in offense post-hamstring injury. And then the 4th, I guess, season to me was when the offense got back on track a little bit and they started winning a little bit. And it was Brandon Ingram was a focal point of the offense. And, you know, from like game 70 to 82, I think that was probably the best stretch of basketball I've seen, you know, Brandon play since he's been in the NBA.
Think about that, right? Like that goes into like the extreme highs and lows of this season. And, you know, last season as well, you got a chance to see the 2 best players, the 2 most talented players, on this franchise take their game to levels that we have not seen them be able to throughout their career. I mean, of course, we saw Brandon in the playoffs last year, but you mentioned like the dude that ended this season was even better than that guy. And then, you know, for Zion, from top to bottom, how his overall impact on winning, we know what he was able to do offensively. and just what he was able to lock into defensively. Your two best players locked into versions that we had not seen, and it happened at two different parts of the season during periods where the other guy wasn't present. It's the craziest thing. And I mean, the Zion part, alone, the Suns game that you mentioned, the back-to-back there at home, bro, it feels like a year ago, like the play-in last year, and all of the positive momentum that was built there feels so long ago, because it was like 42 wins, the most draining 42 win season I think I've been a part of, whether it be as a fan or as someone that wanted to cover it and create content about it.
Yeah, and I think the reason it felt like it did is we saw what it could look like, when some of the stars were aligned, and not even all of them were, because when they won 7 in a row, that came without Brandon. And I don't think we even saw, I think we saw this team be really good, but I don't think we saw how good it could really be, because I think there's a version of this team where Brandon and Zion, get a bunch of reps together and they learn to play with each other, and CJ is your third option, and you've got a ton of great role players. So we didn't even get to see that, but it just felt like this should have been the year where they took that giant step forward. Like, I felt so confident before the season that they were going to do that. I mean, I remember watching Swin Cash's Hall of Fame speech, and she was like, "The Pelicans are coming this year," and I don't think, to me, I was like, she's not saying that to just say that. I think she really means it, and I believed it too. I really thought they were going to take that giant step forward, and I think they would have if we'd gotten a little bit better availability from the best two players on this team. But it just felt like kind of a missed opportunity. I was like, this was supposed to be the year, and the West was so weak too that it's like they could have won a round. They could have won rounds, potentially.
So I'm going to kind of assisting where you left off here. I'm gonna show you a short part of a video from the exit interview through David Griffin that you, of course, were a part of, which are always fun. And I want your comments on that and what you think, just your overall thoughts on what you think that means for this team going forward. And then I'm gonna ask you a little bit about your time in New Orleans and the fun word reputation. Give me a second.
So if I'm a fan and David Griffin comes back up here next year and says, yeah, we just got to get better, I'm going to be pissed off. We've got to get better right now. We've got to learn from everything that we didn't do properly and make that mean something. But I will tell you, I'm also really, really grateful we didn't trick this up, find a way to win 50 games, win one round of the playoffs, and convince ourselves we're better than we are.
Shout out to Rod Walker and Will Guillory for being in the background there without knowing this video was going to be posted. Shout out to you guys. Yeah, Kristen, you were there. That particular element, that quote lasted about 25 seconds there. I think Griffin total spoke for, was it like 30 minutes?
Yeah, 35 minutes. It was a long one.
Yeah. It was very lengthy. If you want to give your thoughts about his total kind of conference there, and the time that he lasted up there, or just that particular element there that I showed about, because I believe before that he said it a few times that if he was a fan, he'd be pissed off if the team was back here. Again, I think he said to start the interview that he would be pissed off about, or a little bit about where the team is based off of some of the flashes that they showed.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I like about Griff is that I think he's extremely competitive. You can tell losing really bothers him, which is probably the case in a lot of these guys. You don't get to that position if you're not really competitive, but the guy, definitely wants to beat people's asses, which I like. It was funny. He was the third person there in that clip. Just leave it at that. And I don't know. I honestly thought he hit a lot of the right notes, and I thought he was pretty honest too. That Yeah, there are things that Pelicans could be doing better about the Zion situation, but mostly it's on him now, which I agreed with. And the other part too, I mean, what I took a lot of his comments, like I think they have made a lot of progress organizationally in the last 4 years. It just hasn't quite translated into wins the way you would like. You know, they've never finished higher than ninth place in these last 4 years. And yet, like when someone who's been here for these 4 years, like I do think they've come a long way since, you know, August 2019, basically like that first camp under Alvin Gentry. Like I really do think organizationally they've come a long way. And now it's just time for it to translate into wins, starting next year, hopefully.
That's a good point, man. Because I think I remember you tweeted something, maybe after the exit interviews or before, about you kind of quite blunt, which we'll get into. Basically, and I don't want to put words in your mouth completely, but along the lines of the organization finally took basketball serious, or started to in 2019. And listening to what you were just saying there, I think about it all the time. Like it just looks like a business that's trying to cram so much productivity and take so many leaps from top to bottom in 4 years, right? And and we're talking about, and some of that looks like they're trying to make up for, so what they got New Orleans in 2002, and it's crazy to think about that. Yeah, it took 17 years for so many different elements, from facilities to medical staffs to marketing, to where like they still have so much further that they can go with some of these positions and with how things are ran, the messaging, so on and so forth. I thought that was very interesting. I'm very curious, what compelled you to say that? Because I think about those things, about, man, they did just start taking basketball serious in 2019, but you were one of the first people that I saw kind of, I would say that's a beat writer that would put that on wax. I was like, damn, he right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like there was some belief out there, and I'm not commenting whether it's true or not. I'm not saying anything. Like some people were like, believe that maybe Zion and people around him were not that enthused about coming to the Pelicans in 2019. And I don't know. I mean, I haven't asked Zion in a private moment. We don't really have the relationship or anything. But I think like if you look for reasons why, it's like, well, think about the Pelicans brand at the time, right? Like they just hadn't if we're being honest, like they did not do a great job of building around Anthony Davis. They did not have the best medical staff for a while. They did not compensate, people in the basketball ops or a lot of the other people very well. And I think some of the things that have changed since 2019, they've started like devoting resources to the people in basketball ops. I mean, David Griffin had won a championship before he came here. Like he had a lot of legit bullet points on his resume, and he was given resources, and he was given resources to build out a really good team of people. Like Trajan Langdon is probably going to be a number one in the NBA somewhere someday, right? Like they're able to get him. Swin Cash. I mean, like, that's a person you want to be part of your organization. I think there are a number of different instances. Aaron Nelson, we can talk about how his tenure in New Orleans has gone, very well respected, especially before he got here. So like, I think Griff has been given resources to like build out, like good teams here and establish that infrastructure. Like, I think you've seen it like CJ McCollum has embraced coming here. And I don't know if that happens in the pre-Griff era, right? Like Larry Nance, it was like clearly a great vet. It was like, I want to be here, man. And we've seen a lot of different instances like Herb and Trey, like those guys. Willie Green always talks about like building a program. Those guys feel like program builders to me. They want to be here. They're good players. So I think you've seen progress in those ways for sure.
So, Kristen, since 2019, in what feels like just so much has happened. You've gotten an opportunity to join a media group that is interesting to say the least over time when it comes to New Orleans and how sports has been traditionally covered. And through your style of journalism, you have ruffled some feathers, for better or for worse. But I always find it interesting that no matter what the case is, the situation, you're not afraid to call it how you see it. Whether that's going to be something that's seen as positive or as negative, that appears to be your approach. Like, you being objective is a big part of, I think that at the end of the day, no matter what side someone is on, everyone should be able to appreciate. What do you think? Like, how would you describe your approach when it comes to talking about so many of the things that you've heard and putting together these stories? I don't have to go through all of them, but I know that they leave a mark, because when I'm on Twitter and you release something that, I mean, the quote tweets can sometimes be crazy. You can be called negative. You can be called a hater. Oh, here's Kristen Clark again, being negative. He just hates Brandon Ingram. Oh, he never has nothing positive to say about this team. What's your thoughts on that side of doing what you do day to day?
Yeah, I think it would be like interesting if you did like somewhere to do like an analysis of everything I've written since 2019. I would imagine that the majority of the stuff has been positive. I don't know. I guess I felt like, I mean, first of all, I came in, I was like, kind of green. Like, I'd done this part-time in Denver and wanted to cover the NBA, but this was really my first full-time like beat writer job when I came here in 2019. And I think like part of what has compelled me to write some of the stuff I've written is I really saw in those first 2 years, like, there are things going on, like context about why the situation the way it was, that the public did not know. And I was like, people should just know about this, man. Like, sorry if it's like some of it's uncomfortable, but like what has been conveyed to the public is like just not even close to true. And so I tried to do that a little bit. And I think like the situation has changed, like improved a lot for the better in the last 2 years. Like, I think the first 2 years here with Alvin and Stan, them working with Griff, that was just, yeah, it didn't work out. And like, it was very messy, to be honest with you. And the pandemic had a big part to do with that too. But things have gotten a lot better in the last 2 years. And I think I've been pretty honest about that. Design situation was obviously weird last year. But yeah, I mean, I guess the main thing was like, I was like, what people just need to understand, like, why things are the way they are. Cause I just don't think like it was being accurately conveyed at all.
And to be fair, sometimes it's still not. And that, I'm curious, like, from your perspective. And this year's been very interesting for me, because I've gotten a chance to, to hear / see things that, maybe, a year and a half ago when I was strictly, writing articles for blogs, I didn't have, I wouldn't have heard, or I wouldn't have access to, or relationships that I didn't have. I'm curious, and then we'll move on. What do you think your balance is between all the information that comes in, what you see, whether it be at practice or in the locker room, or the level of relationships and the people that you're close to that will feed you things and tell you about things that are actually happening? Like, where's the balance between, all right, I have this information, the people need to hear it, and then the other side of it is, damn, I really can't say that.
Yeah, man, that's a good question. Man, that's a hard one. I would just say, like, it's kind of a feel thing, and it's like, it just feels overwhelming at some point where I don't know, I just get a feeling I'm like, I need to just go with this. And, I think part of it is you hear it from multiple people. Like, you try not to go with stuff if it's just from one person. You want to get it from multiple people. And I think the other thing too is like figuring out how to source information. Like, some people tell you stuff and it's just not good information a lot of the time. Like, some people tell you stuff and it's like, this was only 10% accurate. And then other people tell you stuff and it was like 80% accurate. And like, being able to figure that part out I think is important. Like, who are the reliable narrators, I think is really important.
Okay. Yeah, man, that's good, man. I think that a lot of times the fans, or even some of the writers, or the people that are consistently not shy about their opinion, we get caught up with too many things outside of like the truth, right? Sometimes the truth, it matters, right? Or I would say all the time it matters, I think, but the focus is too often driven away from that, right? The facts of the situation. Now, how someone chooses to express them, I think is up to that individual. But I do appreciate that, at least when it comes to you, and you're not the only one. Like, I know that, whether it's pretty or it's ugly in the moment, you don't call it down the middle, call it how it is. And I think in this case, like you mentioned, where there are so many, it feels like secrets, and there's secrets in every business. I think that more people should appreciate that individual that's trying to say, hey, y'all, this is what's really going on. Even if I can't tell you 100%, this is what's going on. You need to know as you're investing your money, your time, so on and so forth, man. I do want to. There's another video that I want to head to here that I'm curious about your thoughts on. CJ McCollum had one of the more interesting seasons that I think any player may have ever had. I mean, well, at least any Pelican, right? Between all the different things that he had to do with the Players Association, striking the deal there, playing 75 games. He finished top 15 in the entire NBA in minutes, which was clearly not the plan. Torn ligament in his thumb, messed up shoulder, torn labrum. And there were so many nights where he looked around and didn't know who was going to be playing next to him. He had a very interesting press conference that once the Oklahoma City game was over, a lot of people talked about, and they took their, there's a lot of different things that you can kind of draw, conclusions you can draw. I'm curious what you think about this, and what do you think CJ's mindset is going to be from a leadership perspective going into the offseason?
I would say availability is important, man. We got to be available. We got to do what we need to do, off the court, in terms of preparation, in terms of getting treatment, in terms of getting the right sleep, the right type of hydration, having the right type of diet. I mean, everything has to matter to us, for everybody.
That was a defeated man. Like, literally and like emotionally, you can see a drained individual there. But go ahead.
Yeah, like I don't mean to say like I thought like he was soft or anything, like quite the opposite. I mean, he like was on the verge of tears, like you could just tell it meant a lot to him, which I actually loved. It's like, this shit really matters to me, which to me is like what you want from like the guys who are supposed to be the leaders of your team. I think like that comment, the clip you just played, to me, my personal read on the situation is that was mostly about Zion there. I just think that like Zion has just got some more work to do to become a great professional. And, he's only 22 years old. A lot of us, including me, did not have it figured out in their early 20s. But yeah, I mean, like I wasn't surprised by that at all. I kind of thought, like when the season ended, CJ would talk about some of the injury stuff and be pretty honest about some of the frustrations of the season. Like I get where he's coming from. It's like, man, I played with this bum shoulder. I played with this bum thumb. Like I did not play very well on a lot of nights because I was fighting through this stuff, but I was going to make a point to be on the floor every night. Like I just understood why he felt the way he felt.
Yeah, man. And I mean, I think there was a portion of us that, knew about the thumb. The shoulder surprised a lot of different people, right? And to play through those type of injuries, on top of not being able to play at the level that I think he is used to or comfortable with. I mean, I'd say he still finished as a solid season, but from a consistency standpoint, you can see those injuries take a toll, and the load that he had to, carry throughout the year earlier just wear on him as the season, slowly started to close. And that's outside of the ways that he was hindered with those injuries. So we'll talk in the off season. I hope to have you back on, and we'll talk about maybe, the approach that this team should take, how aggressive that they will be, and what changes need to be made. But yo, man, appreciate you for coming on. Shout out to the pod, you and Adam. Completely caught me off guard because I had no idea Adam was interested in podcasting. Can you talk a little bit about the show, man? Because it's been, the numbers speak well to the year that you guys had. How's that been for you? And what's next in that area?
Yeah, man, it's been a lot of fun. I think, I just met Adam through Twitter, and probably 2 years ago, we just went to a bar and got a drink or something. And it was just fun talking about basketball with him. And I was like, oh, this guy really knows his stuff. And, I kind of wanted to do a podcast just because I was like, there's just a lot of stuff that doesn't fit in a story that you write, but that you can talk about. And I think oftentimes you can put it into better context when you're just talking about it. And I don't know, I love listening to podcasts too. So I'm like, it'd be fun to do that. And, yeah, man, me and Adam have just stayed in contact, and it's been good, man. Like, anybody who listens, I really appreciate. And, I don't know, I guess sometimes I could be a little bit of a lightning rod, but yeah, it really has been fun being a part of the Pelicans community the last 4 years. It has been a very interesting time.
Well, you guys can find Christian and Adam anywhere you find your local podcast, Apple, Spotify, for people that use Podbean. If you use Stitcher, any of the odd apps that are existed, but Spotify, Apple, check in with Christian and Adam. I know it's gonna be year 2 for them, so they're gonna have a bunch of fun, and it's just a really good informative, I think, podcast, a good mixture between the two perspectives of how we watch this game and how we talk about a team that we're invested in from, both sides of the coin. So shout out to you, Christian. Shout out to Adam. And yeah, man, this will be, I don't know the next show that I'm going to do, but I told myself I was going to have a consistent method. Maybe I'll do some season breakdowns for those that are interested. I've been trying to get in touch with a doctor to talk more about Zion and some other things going forward. But yeah, I didn't end up doing a season recap. Maybe I will, but I had to get Christian up here. We hadn't talked in a little bit, and it was time. So closing out. Appreciate y'all as always. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Tell me how much you love or hate Christian. Most of you will probably tell me how much you hate him. He'll be okay. He'll smile. He has a wonderful magazine subscription that will make him happy, whether or not you like him or not. Thank you guys as always. Talk to you soon. Najee, get us out of here.
In the building. I told you last time, get with us or get out of here, man.